Alright, in this video we're going to be talking about ordering fractions, which is basically like comparing fractions just with 3 fractions instead of 2. So, in some cases, just like in comparing fractions, you can look at them and think to yourself which one is the smallest, which one goes in the middle, and which one is the largest. So this first set of fractions is one of those cases, and the only way that you can really tell that on your own is to actually look at them and think about what the fraction is representing. So 3/6 is basically half. It actually is exactly half. 3 is half of 6, so that's really equal to 1/2. It's close to half. 1/8 is close to 0. That's not a very big fraction at all. And then 4/5 is almost all of it. That's almost a whole 4/5. So really we are able to order these fractions just by looking at them. 1/8 is the smallest, and we always order least to greatest. So 1/8 would be the smallest fraction. The second largest fraction would be 3/6 because that's really equal to half. And then 4/5 is closest to whole, so 4/5 would be the largest out of those 3. So those 3 now are in order, and you didn't have to find common denominators. That happens sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, but you just need to look at your fractions in order to tell if you can order them that way. In this example, these fractions are actually pretty close, so I wouldn't feel comfortable just ordering them by my eye, because if you look at 11/12 is close to whole, but not exactly whole. 3/4 is also close to whole, but not quite there. And 2/3 is the same. So these are all pretty close to being whole, but not quite. So I am going to find a common denominator here and be able to compare them all equally with the same denominator. All right, so 12, 4, and 3, I have to figure out a number that all 3 of them can go into, and I know that 12 is a number that 12, 4, and 3 can all go into, so I am going to use 12. All right, and so this one is kind of going here, this one's going downwards, and this one's going over here. So that's how I'm organizing my problem. In this case, 12 isn't changing, so we don't need to change the numerator. It's just going to turn right into 11/12. Here we have 4 as our denominator turning into 12. So 4 to 12, in order to get from 4 to 12, we multiply by 3. So we do the same thing on the top. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so 3/4 is equal to 9/12. And then here we have 3 turning into 12. Our connector is 4. 3 times 4 is 12, and then 2 times 4 is 8. So now we have 11/12, 9/12, and 8/12. It's very easy to put them in order now. 8/12 is the smallest, so we're going to put 2/3 first. 9/12 is the next largest, so 3/4 goes next. And then 11/12 is our biggest fraction, so that is the 3 fractions in order. Okay, so sometimes you do have to find a common denominator in order to tell which one is the biggest and which one is the smallest. All right, so let's do another practice. Okay, 2/8, 3/7, and 2/7. Now looking at these, 2/8 is kind of close to 0. 3/7 is kind of in between 0 and half, and then we have 2/7. I can tell between 2/7 and 3/7 which one is bigger, but it's hard to then compare it to 2/8 because the denominators are all different. So my best case scenario here is just going to be finding a common denominator. So I can tell 8 times 7 is going to give me a denominator that's going to fit into all 3 of these. All right, so I'm going to use 56 as my denominator for all 3 of these. All right, the connector, I'm going to cover up these 2, so we're only focusing on one at a time. All right, so my connector between 8 and 56 is 7. Okay, and so then I do the same thing on the top. 2 times 7 is 14. So 2/8 is equivalent to 14/56. Okay, let's do our next one. Connector between 7 and 56 is going to be 8. So we do the same thing on the top. 3 times 8 is 24. So that's an equivalent fraction for that one. And then again, our connector here is 8. So we do the same connection on the top. 8 times 2 is 16. All right, so now we have equivalent fractions all with the same denominator. Very easy to see which one is the smallest. The smallest is going to actually be 1456, which is 2/8. So 2/8 gets listed first. Next smallest is 1656, which is 2/7. And then we have 2456, which is 3/7. So that is those three fractions in order: 2/8, 2/7, and 3/7. Okay, last one. Now again, this one should be pretty easy. If we just look at these fractions, we can tell which one is the smallest, which one's the biggest. Think about, you know, your favorite food or whatever thing entices you when you're thinking about fractions, okay? If you had something and it's split into 3 pieces, and you had that same size thing and it's split into 9 pieces, which pieces are going to be bigger? I think the 1/3 is going to be bigger, and I'm going to show you by drawing a picture. And this is something you can do as well. It probably shouldn't be the only way that you're able to compare and order fractions, but it is helpful sometimes. So let's say this box represents 1/3. One of those 3 should be colored in. And let's say this box represents 1/7. We need to cut it into 7 pieces and color in 7. So far, which of these pieces of cake would you rather have? Which one's bigger? 1/3 is bigger than 1/7. And then when you cut 9, that's going to be even smaller. So that's 1/9 there. So that's even smaller. So just by looking at this, we can tell what order they go in. 1/9 is going to be the smallest. 1/7 is right in the middle there. And then 1/3 is the largest piece. Okay, so if you have to think of it in terms of food, and that helps you, then go ahead and do that. In fractions like this, you really shouldn't have to find a common denominator. You should be able to look at them and tell which one is the biggest and which one is the smallest.